Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of Coding with Pat. Today we are going to be creating a book tracker. That way I can list all the books I read. I read quite a few books. Last year was the first year I really got into books, and I read 37. So far for 2018, I've read 7 books. And I met someone this morning named Alex Gork, and he showed me his list of books and absolutely put mine to shame. So now what I want to do is actually create a list similar to what Alex has here for my own personal website so that I can update, add new books to this list, and then it's all automatically connected to a Firebase backend. So I'm going to do simple HTML and JavaScript on the front end, and then on the back end it's going to be powered by Firebase. I'm going to create 2 pages. One page to add books to Firebase, and then the second to display all of them. The first one, the adding, should only be accessible by myself, and the second page should be accessible by any person. Let's go ahead and get started. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new project folder called, in my patricksweetman.com folder, I'm going to create it called Book Tracker. And then inside of here, I'm going to make a new document called index.html. I'm also going to make a new folder in here labeled add, and then inside of add I'm going to make a new document called index.html. So this book, in the book tracker folder, this index.html is going to actually display all of the results from Firebase, and inside of here this index.html is going to be my add page where I'll be able to add new books to my Firebase backend. So let's get going with editing this. So I'm going to use my editor, which is Atom. You can also use Visual Studio. If you use Notepad++, you can also use that. I do not recommend it. Let's clear up some of this in here. Oh, we've already got patricksweetman.com open. So I can go into Book Tracker, open up this index.html. Actually, I want to go with the add first. So we'll go into this index.html, and then we'll just put in the initial documents for an HTML page. I personally like to start off with the same kind of framework every single time, so I'm going to just paste it over. Doc type HTML followed by a head and your meta tag, the title, which in this case is actually going to be Book Tracker, and then the body, which is where all of my documents are actually going to be stored. Then what I want below here is I want my script tags, which should be generated by Firebase in a couple seconds. So I'll go ahead and save all this, open up my FTP, FileZilla, and now that I have FileZilla, let's go ahead, I have a quick connect to my FTP. And once I'm signed in, I'm going to just drag and drop my files over. So now that I'm connected, I'm just going to go over here and I'm going to say, just make it a simple hello world so that I can see if this page will actually load. Now that we've saved that, let's drag and drop the entire book tracker folder. You know what, I'm going to rename this books. The entire folder is going to be renamed books. And then books is going to be thrown in just to my overall root folder. So there's our books folder, which is now present inside my file directory. So now we should be able to go to patricksweetman.com, and then instead of /about, we're going to go to /books /index.html. And then in here we don't see anything. Let's try Control-Shift-R. Still nothing. Not sure why nothing's here. So let's just try uploading again, make sure that all my changes are saved. Okay, looks like let's get rid of this, one of these folders. Which folder do we need to get rid of? We need to get rid of this book tracker folder. Delete you. Yeah, move that. Now let's check inside of books, and then check inside of add at index. Okay, that's probably my problem, is that I'm going to the wrong directory. Books, and then inside of add, we should have an index. There we go. There's our hello world. So now we've proven that the file is actually there, and it looks like we want it to. So the next step I want to have is to connect it to my Firebase server. So to do that, let's go into Firebase, into the console, and we'll create a new product or project called Book Tracker. We'll even throw a little hyphen in there and then create that project. Firebase takes a little bit of time for it to set up. And once that's set up, what we can then do is go in and connect it. Great, it's ready. So now I can add it to my web app, and they give me all the code I need, even the script tags. So I can just copy it. I gotta even click this button for copy. That is simple. And then just outside of the body, we'll put in a script tag. We'll save that. And now we have Firebase in our app. Close out of that. And the first thing I would like to do is authentication. So I want to set up a sign-in method of Google because I really like Google. We're going to enable this. And then we'll save this. Oh, I think there was even a thing in here, web configuration. No, not helpful. Okay, so we will save that, and now we'll add in authentication now that we've enabled Google sign-in. The best way to actually integrate Google sign-in for Firebase, in my opinion, is to follow their documentation on the website. They have a lot of great documentation, which shows you everything you actually need to do. So what we've already done is we've already added Firebase to our project, and we've just gone into our Firebase console, into the auth section, and enabled the Google sign-in. So the next thing we need to do is we need to create an instance of the Google provider object, and we'll do that in our code right here. We will go ahead and new provider. We'll save that. And now let's go back to our documentation. We don't need to specify any OAuth 2 scopes because I just need to get my identification. And then to localize, this is optional, and it's to get a language, which we don't really care about language code because I'm the only one that's going to be accessing this page. Optional, we don't need OAuth provider parameters. And now we need to sign in with a pop-up window, which is exactly what we want. So in here it looks like we call Firebase auth, and then we create a pop-up with our provider, which in this case, our provider is Google Auth provider. That's what this provider object is. And then on result, we want to get a token, which is the access token from the provider, as well as the user object from that same result. If we get an error, we're going to be given a code, a message, an email, the email of the user's account, as well as a credential. So let's just copy all of this and then paste it right below our provider code and do a little bit of formatting here so that everything looks better. Boop. Now we should be able to save this. And this is going to fire immediately. Other option, we can do a redirect. I prefer the pop-up method just because it doesn't redirect the user from the page. And then that should be all that we need. Should be everything. So what I'm going to do in our code is if they're actually signed in properly, then I'm going to alert signed in. Welcome, Pat. Welcome home, Pat. And if they are not signed in accurately, then I want to alert sign in failed. And then we'll just say, please try again. Now that we've saved all of that, let's go back and transfer everything in. We'll just pull the entire books folder back in here, and then we'll overwrite if the source is newer, or we'll use that action. And what that's going to do is make it so that I can just drag and drop, and then all of my files get updated. So let's go back into our other Chrome page. Let's just make all these one single thing. And now let's go into here, Control-Shift-R. Okay, so now we have a pop-up, and it says that the sign-in was failed. Although the pop-up did try to generate, it didn't actually, it's not letting us go through with anything. So the first thing I want to try is inspect the page and see what's going wrong. Let's go into the console, and it doesn't look like we're getting any logs, which is a good thing. But we are getting this catch, which is giving us an error. So we need to now figure out what's going wrong. To figure out what's going wrong, I'm going to, instead of just alerting the sign in failed, please try again, instead of please try again, what I want to do is I want to add on the error message. And now that we have that, let's see if we get any more helpful information. This domain is not authorized to run the operation. Add it to OAuth redirect domains in the list. Okay, so I just need to go to the Firebase console, the auth section, and then add this domain as something which is approved. That's easy. Where did I want to go again? Auth and then sign in method. So let's go into here, go into auth, go into sign in method, and then authorize domains. Let's add this domain that we're currently at. Now that we have that domain, let's go back over here and see if it lets us sign in. Great, so it looks like now that we have added it, I can actually pick one of my accounts. In this case, I'll pick Sweetman Tech. And then welcome home, Pat. So now we are actually signed in properly every time we land on this page, which is nice because this means that before users see anything besides hello world, we can just present them with a blank page and ask them to sign in. So what I want to do now is just allow my credentials to access this. So let's see what the user object is. By logging on a successful login, let's just log that user object to see what's inside of it. And then, yeah, those are the only things that I want to do. Let's log that, and once we log that, we can see what kind of things are specific to me that nobody else has. Close this. Okay. We sign in. Hopefully it just signs us in. It does not. Welcome home, Pat. Thanks. You're so kind. Now we'll inspect. Check out the console, and then we have a user coup. Now this user has a bunch of objects such as display name and email and other stuff. So what I want to do, I think as long as display name equals Patrick Sweetman will be good. So what I'll do is I'll copy this over. User so this time we'll say welcome home, and instead of Patrick we'll say plus user dot display name, and I believe that will be good. Let's check out authentication documentation to make sure that I'm doing this right. So to go into the documentation, what we want to check for is the auth provider. Oh, actually probably the Google auth provider, because Google may have specific functions and objects that nobody else has. So we returned, great, so we have an access token and an ID token. Let's see if our just getting of the display name will work. So now that we're saying user.displayname, let's save that, add it to FileZilla, and see what happens. It's the nice part about code is even if things break, it only impacts my computer, and because Google hosts everything on their servers, there's no chance of me hurting anything in the long term because I can kind of just fix it back. So we sign into here, and then we should alert my display name, welcome home Patrick Sweetman, which it does. Perfect. Let's see if it even does this for my other account. If we do it with my personal account, Par4 2008, let's sign in with you and see if we still get Patrick Sweetman. Great, so this will actually make it so that I can sign in with either account and still be granted access to this. So we can say in here if user.displayname equals Patrick Sweetman. If this happens, what we want to do is show add book screen. Otherwise, if they're not Patrick Sweetman, I want to show permission denied. However, I decide to do that. So now we can show the add book screen, which I'll actually want to only alert if they're signed in as Patrick Sweetman. Otherwise, alert, I just want to alert them only Patrick may access this site. Now, I'm realizing one of the problems with this right now is that display name can be changed. So, what that means is that if someone logs in with an account that is not Patrick Sweetman as the display name, all they have to do is change their display name to save Patrick Sweetman, and then they'll be granted access. However, for now, if I sign into one of my client accounts, the Sweetman Properties Group is Paul Sweetman, my father. Welcome home Paul Sweetman is what's presented. Uh-oh. I should have just updated it. Maybe I didn't refresh the site. But what should happen on here is when someone who's not Patrick Sweetman logs in, it should alert only Patrick may access this site. And now let's sign in with Paul Sweetman's account. Welcome home Paul Sweetman is still popping up as it should not. Oh, well, I'm not checking for equality here, right? Here I'm setting a display name equal to a variable, or equal to a string. Instead, I should be checking. This is not actually enforcing anything, which I'm surprised I didn't get any messages there. So let's save this, throw it back up, and try it again. Sign in as Paul Sweetman. And now it says only Patrick may access this site. I messed up the string. Not super critical right now. And then let's try it again, but this time I sign in as Patrick and it should give me a different error. Or it should give me a good alert that says, welcome home, Pat. Great. Alright, so now that we've verified that, what I want to do is, if this happens, then I want to actually create a function called display add book, and then inside of this function I'm going to add the book. Function display add book. And what I actually want to do on top of this is add in jQuery. I haven't added in any jQuery yet, so that's something I definitely want to add. I'm going to add jQuery by jQuery CDN, and by researching a CDN, what that stands for is Cloud Delivery Network, so that I can host jQuery without actually adding all that code in. And let's make it the minified version, and now they give me an entire script tag which has jQuery in it. So I can add this to the top of my app or the bottom, doesn't really matter as long as it's before it is called and used. We'll make it here. Make it all one line to follow our current design patterns. Now we have we have jQuery, we have Firebase being imported, and then we have this code. Inside of display add book, what I want to say is I want to change the body. So I'm going to say $, should just be body, I believe. Body .html. And then inside of these parentheses for .html, what I want to set is the actual HTML. So I'm just going to make a div please add a book, and then let's also make a button click me, and then /button. And let's see what happens here. I may not be using this right, but it's been a while since I've used jQuery. First, we are prompted to sign in. We're not prompted to do anything right now. That means we must have an error. Failed to log in. Okay, Firebase is not defined at line 24. Line 24. Firebase.initialize app config. Okay, that's weird, because Firebase is defined right up here. Curious. Very curious. Okay, how about How about, I actually don't know what's going on here. Let's see if it's my display add book function. If we comment this out, let's add this back on. Firebase is still not defined. Now this all happened once I added in jQuery. So let's see what happens if I get rid of jQuery. Oh, what? /script, open script, let's get rid of you. Save you. We're going to get a new error now that the $sign is not defined, which is the jQuery selector. No, Firebase is still not defined. Okay. Okay. Name not resolved. This is weird. Line 13. It looks like somehow there was a space thrown in between gstatic.com and all of that. Real quick, I hope that was it, because this seems to be really random. Okay, now we're getting a pop-up again, which is great. Let's close out of here real quick and then add in jQuery again before. Yeah, I know. My bad. You don't like me. Paste that, save this, drag and drop, refresh, do a little shindig, call it a day. Let's sign in as me. And then welcome home. Okay, so we got the welcome home. Oh, I'm still commenting this out. Let's uncomment that and see if we get what we want, which should be the HTML changing to please add a book followed by a button. It says click me. The longest part is this pop-up screen of just waiting for the OAuth client to pop up. And now we have please add a book followed by click me, and if we click me nothing happens, which is great. That's exactly what we want to happen. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to generate a very simple HTML page. I'm also going to add in some bootstrap so that it looks prettier, just because I do like that. What I want is I want just a I would like a section to enter the name of the book, a section to enter my rating, and then that should be it. I just want a drop down for the number, maybe even just a number selector, and then the name of the book, and then I'm going to click save off of that. So let's go into here, and then that button should still remain. And let's go and same thing, we're going to say bootstrap, and then we can just search bootstrap because on the bootstrap website they have a CDN for us to use. I just go into get started, and then here it is. Here's our style sheet. Can put this up inside of our head because style sheets like to live in the head. And I don't know if we need the jQuery or if we need the JavaScript, but it looks like they do include a version of jQuery, so I can use this to actually overwrite my current content delivery network for jQuery with just all of the bootstrap stuff. So now we have imported bootstrap. We got rid of our regular jQuery and just are including jQuery with bootstrap. And now we have everything we need. So inside of here, I'm going to make this one text-align. Oh yeah, let's make it a class. Class equals text-align-center. And what that should do is it's a bootstrap class that aligns all of your text to the center inside of that div. One thing to notice is each additional thing I want to add on top, this design for bootstrap, this jQuery to make it easier for my HTML change, each of those adds a little bit of time to development that you don't necessarily need. So now I do have bootstrap font, but it has not centered itself for some reason. Probably just because I'm using the class wrong, because I always use classes wrong. After looking it up on Bootstrap, it looks like I can actually just do text-center instead of align center. And that should be everything I need for Bootstrap 4. If you have a different version of Bootstrap, then you may need to do this differently. The place I referenced in order to make these changes, I went to Bootstrap's website. Actually, what I did is I just Googled center text Bootstrap, and then the first thing that popped up is Bootstrap's documentation. So then I found text center to be the class that I want right here. I may need to just apply that. We'll see what happens. So I just imported it over. Let's refresh this. Wait for this whole pop-up thing to happen. And once the pop-up thing does happen, I'm going to sign in. You know what? I may disable this pop-up just so that... There we go. So now our text is centered. Now what I want to do is also make it vertically justified. And I'm going to make it vertically justified similar way. I'm going to say horizontal center bootstrap. If you'll notice, the majority... Oh, there we go. Horizontal alignment. The majority of what I do is Google things. As long as you can ask good questions and you're always curious, you're able to be a really good developer, which is nice. You don't need to have a major college degree. You don't need to be always reading or doing things. You just need to be openly curious about what the world is doing. One of three columns. I want align item center. It looks like also a row, which I do also want all of my items inside of here to be a row, so that's fine. Let's go row, align item center, and also text center. This should both vertically and horizontally center all of my items. Yeah, let's go ahead and remove this. So we will just comment all of you out. And then right after you, we're just going to say display add book. So all that I really care about is displaying those screens. We've already proven that the authentication works. And it's just taking time right now. Go away. Thank you. Where's your error? Okay, so now you're just breaking everything, which is not good. Probably because the new classes I've added don't do what I want them to do. Just do a little bit of debugging. Take out one thing at a time. Keep taking things out until everything's done. Until it's all fixed. That was the fix. Okay, so now we've got it centered, but what I didn't do is actually make it so that they're all... Yeah, I want to align self to the center. I want to align self to center. Align my center, align center to self, align the self to this. Yeah, that's it. That's what I wanted to do. Now, drag and drop. Drag and drop always takes time. Maybe a little bit less time than using a terminal. Maybe more time. I don't know. It's what I'm doing today. Okay. It doesn't want to center it vertically, which is always frustrating because it's hard to center vertically. How about I could just add some padding? Other options are I keep scrolling and see if I can actually do something. Maybe I need a container. Okay, yeah, let's throw everything inside of a container because that's probably what's making this. Container, and now we need to close out our other div /div. Save this. Let's make this easier by spanning lines. Tab you over. Okay, shift tab. Already got one there. And then we'll boop boop. And then we'll shift tab. Already got one there, and now we'll throw you over. Okay, so now we've got a div of a container along. Inside of that, we have a nested div with the class text center and align self center. And then inside of that, we have please add a book and click me. What we want to see is why we're not actually getting the vertical. I may have just closed all of my Chrome tabs. That stinks. We'll open up Chrome. Let's go to vertical center bootstrap. Vertical alignment. We don't want bootstrap 4. Well, we want bootstrap 4, but we want actual bootstrap. Alignment. There it is. Bootstrap 4 vertical alignment. Inside of here, hopefully it tells us everything we need. Align middle. Let's see what this does. Wow, that's all the documentation. So hopefully this align middle works. Align the middle, throw it in there. Go back to patricksweetman.com /books /add /index. Nothing here, so something may be messed up. Nothing is messed up. We just don't have anything here. Wonder why that is. Let's get rid of, okay, so if you'll see here, I don't have an ending quote for that. So I think that may be the issue. Okay, so now we do have that. It's still centered up top rather than in the middle, and I may not care enough to change it because yeah, I just want to align it to the center. But if it's not going to let me, that's fine. It's just kind of a style thing. If it's not going to let me do that, what's the next thing I need to do? So the next thing I need to do is change please add a book to an input of title. So in here, what I actually want is I want a input class equals form control, I believe. Let's just do a form group with a label and a div. What happens if I do that? No, not what I want. And I don't need any help, so that's not needed. But we do need a plus, and we need a plus, and then also probably these. Followed by a plus. Save view. Let's check what we got in here. Label for example input email. We don't want this to be example input email. Instead, we want it to be book title. And then for book title, what I actually want, instead of type email, I want this to be type string. Maybe just type text. HTML input types. So the type attributes are, I think I just want string. Text. Text is what I want. And then form control, book title, and then area is described by book title. Not that it matters because I don't need that help. And then the placeholder is enter book title. And since we're already prompting them with that, we don't need this please enter a book here. And let's see what that looks like. Now we should have an input field. Email address, followed by our email address, followed by a button. And we can make this button look a little bit better if we just add in, make this actually an A, class equals button. And we'll even make it button primary so that it it looks like what I should be clicking on, and make this an A instead. And instead of email this should say new book. Yeah, great. Let's try that again. Right, so now we have enter a new book title, and then we have add book, and then the last thing that I want is I'm going to copy this and make a new one for my rating. But instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to look for a drop down. I want to select, so I'm going to copy this because this is just a select. I forgot I could do this. I might as well do this. They even have my options numbered option 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which is exactly what I want, because all that I'm doing is ranking the book. 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. And now I want to go bam. Look at all of those. And now we want to tab these guys over one more. Label for, and instead of that, we want this ID to change to book rating. And then we have options 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and then add book. Womp womp. What happened here? Missing this after the argument list on line 66. We're missing a closing parenthesis somewhere on line 66. Ah, no plus signs. Those pluses are all very critical. Space plus sign, save all that. There we go. So now I have new book. I'm able to enter a new book title, like the inevitable. And then I'm able to give it a rating of 1 through 5. And then when I click add book, let's see what happens. Right now, nothing. And then, so what I want to have happen is I want to create a listener for this button so that when this is clicked, it actually adds the book. But the first thing I want to do is alert when that's clicked. Luckily, jQuery gives us a bunch of, well, they give us a couple functions so that way we can do exactly that. I just want to create a listener function. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to create a selector, jQuery selector for, I'm going to make this an ID. I'm going to give it an ID of add book button. I'll actually make it button add book. So you can tell first that it's a button and then what that button does. And then inside of there I want a dot click, and inside of here I would like a function. And inside of this function I want to say alert add book to Firebase. So what happens here is when I click on this button, this with the ID button add book, it should automatically trigger this listener function so that it alerts add book to Firebase. We land, we click add book, and nothing happens. Nothing happens. Try it again. Did I add all the code? Drag and drop, check it out. When this is clicked, we should get an error or an alert, and we're currently not. I believe the reason we're currently not is because this is an ID, and in jQuery IDs, if you want to select them, you need to start with the hashtag. What this is looking for is the element or the item button add book, similar to the element body, the body tag. It's looking for a button add book tag, which doesn't actually exist. So thank you for not alerting, because you should not have alerted them. I'm thanking the computer, not listeners. You listeners are great just for being here. Now when we click add book, we do get add book to Firebase, which is awesome, because now what we can do is we can say, instead of alerting that, what I actually want to alert is the value of the book title. So let's say let book title equal $. I need to give this input. Oh, book title, I already have it. Okay. Hashtag book title dot text, and then in here let's go plus book title plus that. So let's see if this adds what we want it to Firebase. Well, not adds, it should just alert the name of the book. And then if I type boobadoo, it still says nothing, which is not what we want. Which means that what I'm doing is I'm calling this .text improperly. The reason I'm getting it properly is because it's the value, not the text. The value of an input field is what we generally want to grab. And this is nothing, and DWD gives us DWD. So now if I wanted to add the inevitable, then when I click add book, it's going to say add the inevitable to Firebase. Great. We're getting there. Let's also get the variable for the select. So whatever the value of the select is, 1 through 5. So we'll let book rating equals $, hashtag, I think it's book rating. The select is book rating. Book rating. I believe this one's also .val, but select could be a little bit different. I'll find out soon. Add book title to Firebase with rating, and add the rating, book rating. Save that, go back into here, add all this stuff again. With rating 1, is this going to give me Dr. Seuss? Add Dr. Seuss to Firebase with rating 4. Great. So now we have everything that we need to add all this to Firebase. The next thing we need to do is actually add it to Firebase. And I also want to check that there is an actual book entry and that there is an actual book rating. But this is, since there's a default value, we don't need to check that this is selected ever. We do just need to check that Dr. Seuss is actually filled in, or that the book title is filled in. If book title dot length is greater than 0, so if the length of the book title is more than 0, then let's alert this. If not, then you shouldn't alert anything, because there's no book title in, so nothing should get added to Firebase if nothing exists in the title field. Okay, so since there's nothing, nothing's being alerted, but if I enter title in the title field, then we add title with rating 1, and even if there's only one character in there, because it's greater than or equal to 1 or greater than 0, we can add that. Now adding it to the database. Same way as most things with Google, I recommend using their documentation, so write to Firebase web. You know what? I usually use the real-time database, but yeah, because I have more experience with that, we'll stick with the real-time database. I do eventually want to move up to the Firestore because it sounds like that's kind of where Google is moving. But because I want to make this relatively quick, and we've already been recording for about 45 minutes, I do want to just get it over with. So let's just get a reference to the database. Now that we've got a reference to the database, we want to write user data. Now we'll need a specific reference to our database. Oh, that's not what I wanted. I just copied code that I didn't know what it did. So all that I want to do is write the user data. Firebase.database.ref, and inside of here I want it to be books / book title. Well, let's make it, let's also get the year, because I would like all my books to be sorted by year. Let year equal new date. I believe date is what I want. Before I go writing, I want to get the proper date. Year plus year. Dot get year. I want to check this one more time. Get year. Yeah, date object dot get year, which is exactly what I do. I declare a date object and then I get the year from that. But to make this more clear, let's just say today. And let's make sure that we do get the proper year when I do that. Year is 118. That doesn't make any sense to me. Get current year. Let's just Stack Overflow it. Get current year in JavaScript. And then, so new date dot get full year, probably what I want. Apparently there's a get full year. That is exactly what I want. So let's now save it to the reference of how did they do that? They were doing something weird. They have a new date in parentheses and then they just say dot get year. So in here I may be able to just do this. Dot get full year. And now what that's going to do is it'll declare the new one, do it all in there. That way I don't need to do it outside of there. And then change this to year because now we're actually getting the year for this variable. So we'll say year / book title. And now that I am saving the book title, let's save the attributes that I want to be put in there. The things that I would like are author, rating. Rating is pretty much the only thing that I'm saving right now. So we'll make rating book rating. And now every time we click the add book button, we want to check if the title is greater than 0, and if it is, create a new reference to the database, and then save at that reference the... We actually don't need to do this because we're doing everything right up there. Everything's one line. We just want to go to the database at the reference of year / the title of the book, and then set that to the rating. And those are the only things that we do right now. Hiccup. Those are the only things we have to do right now. Later on, I would like to add in more things like a link to be able to click on the book and other stuff, but for now, that works. Let's check, make sure we don't have anything currently saved for this. Okay, thank you, FileZilla. Go to Book Tracker, and inside of Book Tracker, what did I want to check? Let's open up the database. Let's check in here. We'll get started with the real-time database. Start in test mode so that everything can be happening. And now nothing's in here right now. It's totally empty. And when we click Add Book, still nothing should have happened. Yeah, because we haven't actually refreshed the page. Now we're probably getting some errors again. We're missing a syntax. We're missing a parenthesis in the argument list at line 87. Line 87, we... Curious. I'm always curious. Was it line 87? 87, right here. So we've got open parenthesis, close parenthesis, open parenthesis, close parenthesis, and then set open parenthesis, close parenthesis, in addition to our squiggly brackets. Same problem. I think I found the problem. Year, I didn't throw in any pluses there. Pluses are my bane, my Achilles heel, the squeaking board. Okay. And then we'll go book rating of, I really liked it, that was a 5. And then once we add it, we now have, inside of 2018, we have the inevitable with a rating of 5. If we go back here, and then we write principles, which is another, you know what, weapons of math destruction. I used this in one of my college essays on smart cities, on the negative impact of algorithms. And we'll just make this one 4 so that there's a little bit of a difference. When we add this book inside of here, we now have 2 books. We have Weapons of Math Destructions and The Inevitable. So we have created successfully an app that lives on my website that anybody can visit that checks whether or not they are me. Sign in with Google. Actually, they don't sign in with Google right now, so let me fix that real quick. We want all of this to be uncommented. Boom, boom. And then we want to get rid of this line. First thing that happens when we land on this website is we see the text hello world. That's all we see. If we try to log in with someone who's not Patrick Sweetman, it presents them only Patrick may access this site and leaves them with hello world. If instead they refresh and they sign in with an account that has the display name of Patrick Sweetman, then what happens is they say welcome home and they're presented with a new book. So I can add into here, what's another book I have finished recently? Ready Player One. Ready Player One, another great book, and for this one I'm going to give it a rating of 3. When I add that book, it is not added anywhere. Why aren't you being added, book? Let's inspect. Inspector Gadget. Let's try it again. Let's just refresh real quick because I'm not getting any errors. And inside of my auth function, the only thing that I've changed is my auth function. Display add book. Display add book. Maybe I shouldn't do this until display add book is called. It could be my error. It could also not be my error. I don't know. What am I? Just a developer? Not like I should know anything about this programming stuff. Oh, maybe it was just waiting for me to sign in. That could have been my problem. let's sign in with my account. And once we're into my account, we're welcomed home. Try adding a book, nothing should happen, right? Great. Ready Player 1. Ready Player 1 will give a rating of 3, add that book, and now we have Ready Player 1 in here with a rating of 3. For my own sanity, let's see if that was the issue by removing this function call outside of display add book again. And let's see if that click function can only be called after the actual button is created. If so, then we should not be allowed to do this. What's another book I've read? I've also read, in 2018, I have read What's the Future and Why It's Up to Us. That one, incredible book, 5. Okay, now it's not being added. So what that makes me think is that we can't add this .click function unless the button add book actually exists. So because it only exists once the user is signed in, see, we don't display add book until the user has actually been confirmed to be Patrick Sweetman. We can't create this listener function until this button has been created. So once that function's been created, once the button's been created, we can actually assign that click function, which we can prove because now that we've moved it in there, we can refresh this, sign in as an account that has the display name of Patrick Sweetman, boop-a-doop-boop-boo, and now we can go what's the future and why it's up to us. Definitely a 5, add book. And now we have what's the future and why it's up to us added in here. So that is end-to-end what we wanted to do for this first part of this endpoint of our add indexit.html. Next video, what I'm going to be showing is the front end. So this endpoint that has nothing on it right now, books.index.html. This currently has nothing on it, and what I will have it display is this table. I'll have it show all of the books that I've read, organized by year, matching Alex Gorik's site. Alex Ogorek. I just kind of met him recently. I'm not entirely sure how to pronounce his names. But he does have a list of books, which is what I've been following. So what I want it to say is I want it to say a year, followed by a number, and then the book. And it looks like recently what he's changed it to is he's actually changed it to have the date that the book was added. So the next thing I'm probably going to add once this video is over is I'll expand the year function that I have right here, this year. I'll expand this to, instead of just getting the full year, I'll also get the full month and the full day. That way I can store those in here as month and day respectively, and then use those functions in my report as well.